While in a lot of ways I'm kind of in autopilot until Survivor Series weekend, there is one question that remains relevant above all, and that is, what did you guys ask the Phoenix? What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and this is the September edition of Ask the Phoenix. Welcome aboard. For all those who don't know, who have never seen, or maybe viewing this for the first time, this is my monthly Q&A series. If you have a question you want me to answer in October, put it down in the box below, get it there before the 25th of the month, and I usually tape these sometime between the 25th and the end of the month. I do have to apologize. I do feel a bit shit, so if I don't sound the greatest and I don't sound as excited as I should, which seems to be something I'm saying a lot recently, but then again I'm watching a lot of Raw, I do apologize for that. You guys know, I say it every month, even if this channel went down to one video a month and I couldn't do reviews and I couldn't do previews and I couldn't do any of the other shit, this is the one series that will always stay. It's a chance for me to talk to you guys. I really do appreciate you guys throwing your names in the hat, etc., because without you, this series doesn't exist. I will say, toss your questions down for next month. Next month being October brings about my favorite holiday, which is, of course, Halloween. So those of you that do themed questions, if you want to do, I don't know how you do Halloween-themed wrestling questions, but if you want to do something like that, I will say go ahead. I'm going to get right to it because there's a lot of questions. Wrestling with Reality, aka the Angry Mark. Weston, how you doing, buddy? What does Raw need to do to be as good, if not better, than SmackDown? Well, SmackDown works very hard at being very simple, and that's I think that's the best way to put it. SmackDown has less wrestlers to try and jam onto a show. It has a smaller show, and as I say, because it's got a couple of the old NXT writers there, it follows sort of the takeover format where it's like, let's assign a match or a feud to each of our title scenarios and maybe put on one or two more, like the Bray Wyatt Randy Orton situation. Raw needs to, and wrestling is supposed to be fun. Raw needs to stop trying so hard to be fun. Raw has two of the most fun acts in the WWE right now. They got Enzo and Cass, and they got the New Day. If it was me, during the brand split, I would have put one of those acts on each show because they kind of dilute each other. But you've got Enzo and Cass, who are a fun gimmick, but then they paired them up with the Shining Stars, who nobody gave a shit about, who they tried to give a fun gimmick to as well. And then you have the New Day, who have a fun gimmick, and they paired them up with the Club, who are supposed to be badasses, but then went out with the ring postitis and the Dr. Gallows, Dr. Anderson, and Nurse Dana Brooke with the rubber glove gimmick. And yeah, and then you got Jericho, who's funny, but he's bringing that comedy to Kevin Owens in the main event scene, which is, again, trying to be fun. And I mean, take a look at what they're doing with, I mean, people talk about John Cena being goofy. John Cena, in his quest to go get his 16th world title reign, which I know not a lot of people like, but he's been more serious than half the stuff that's happening on Raw. Raw, depending on how you want to look at it, has a better roster and a more potentially serious roster, and it's a bad comedy show, and it's for 3 hours. So, as much as I don't want to say this about wrestling, Raw has to stop trying so hard to be fun, is my answer. Who would you have induct John Cena into the Hall of Fame? Oh, wow. As far as feuds go, I would have Randy Orton, or if you could get CM Punk. If you want to look at it from a different perspective, as far as the role that he fills in the company, I think getting somebody like a Hulk Hogan to induct John Cena would be very apropos, because they served very similar roles. This month was my birthday month, so I was wondering if you could subscribe to my channel, and it would make me mark out. I did subscribe to your channel, and I made sure I was subscribed to your channel when you submitted your application for my Survivor Series challenge. I do encourage everybody watching this video right now to go check out Wrestling with Reality, aka the Angry Mark, and the markout may commence, I suppose. Would you like a storyline where Kane kidnaps Balor and basically turns him into a legit demon where he starts wearing red contacts. I see what you mean with the red contacts. I see what you mean with wanting a dark character to sort of enhance the demon. Unfortunately, at this point, what would hold that back is I don't think realistically anybody gives a shit about Kane. I mean, if the Undertaker came back and his sole purpose was to mentor the demon Finn Balor, that would be amazing. If they did a story where, I don't know, Undertaker came, he saw how Finn Balor stumbled when he first came to Raw, not his fault with the injuries and all that sort of thing, but sort of mentored him, and while Finn Balor was recovering from his injury, you could do all these vignettes about how Undertaker helps Finn Balor be more evil, rah. Then you have Finn Balor turn on the Undertaker around WrestleMania season, and you're off to the races. Point being, people still give a shit about the Undertaker. Unfortunately for Mr. Glenn Jacobs, nobody really gives a shit about Kane anymore. He's in that Mark Henry Big Show category. It doesn't help that Mark Henry, Big Show, and Kane just did a, what's the show? Table for Three, which just solidifies the fact that they're all lumped in the same category. I asked a Raw apologist why SmackDown is better than Raw, and they said because the SmackDown gets better booking. Do you agree? SmackDown gets better booking 100%. 100%. No fault of their own, but they created a brand new world title, and it hopscotched between about 3 different people. The last women's title match was booked in a you get a shot, no wait a minute, you get a shot, no wait a minute, you get a shot, fuck it, we don't want to make a decision, you both get a shot manner. The tag team title scenario there is a joke. The New Day and the Club, just like super bad comedy, and even the United States Championship was booked in a way that made no sense. We spent a whole lot of time on Sheamus and Cesaro. We see where that went. And they can't find things to do with somebody as talented as a guy like Sami Zayn. The only thing, and I keep saying this and people think I'm being a sarcastic asshole, the only thing saving Raw is the Cruiserweights, and they are doing as much to make the Cruiserweights their own brand as possible. So I feel very comfortable saying that there's, while I enjoy the Cruiserweights, there's still nothing good on Raw, if that makes sense. Which wrestlers do you think that need to be repackaged in order to show their true potential? One of them, and I know people don't agree with this either, was Jack Swagger. Because Jack Swagger, as much as he's got the lisp, as much as he's not the greatest on the mic, and as much as he's never been given a great story so far, there's no denying the guy has potential in the ring, and they've pumped him up and they've given him a little bit of a shot of adrenaline, moving him over to SmackDown, and they got him in a feud with what the hell's his name? Baron Corbin. I don't think that's necessarily a repackaging. I think there's a lot of guys that they just need to decide to give a shit about again. On SmackDown, they've done that with Dolph Ziggler right now. They've, I mean, Miz had the Intercontinental Championship, but they didn't. Other than the fact that he had the belt, they weren't putting much into him. Like, they weren't giving him any time. They weren't giving him mic time. They weren't letting him run with something. Now you got 2 guys in Miz and Ziggler who nobody gave a shit about a couple of months ago, if you get anybody to be honest. And now their feud is one of the best things on SmackDown. So I don't think there's necessarily a lot. Okay, obviously the Shining Stars are decent talents. They need to be repackaged. Breezango, I love them as a team. I hope they stay as a team. They need to shed the gimmick. The guys in the New Day, individually, great athletes. They work together as a cohesive unit very well. Just shed the corny gimmick. So yeah, I don't think there necessarily needs to be a repackage. I think there's a lot of gimmicks that need to be pulled back, and I think there's a lot of wrestlers on the roster that they just need to start giving a shit about again. And that's not really a repackage. That's just, hey, here, have a package. We're going to do something with you. Do you see another potential wrestling boom in the next 10 years? Depends. While most people don't like it, which I don't really understand, WWE is going to a very, not an indie style, but an indie population in their roster, where they're not just grabbing any old bodybuilder off the street and telling him to wrestle, aka Batista, prime example. They're going out and they're going into the indies and finding guys that, surprise, surprise, can actually wrestle. And the fact that people are against that, I respect both guys, but Wrestling Jesus and General Jerry have a bunch of you know, they have their own opinions and good for them, but I don't understand how you are against a wrestling company for going and getting better wrestlers. That just, it doesn't speak to me personally. As I say, not a dig at either one of those guys. In fact, I encourage you guys to go check out General Jerry and check out, I don't have to tell you guys to check out Wrestling Jesus. Everybody knows that Wrestling Jesus is fucking hilarious. But the idea that going out and finding guys that can actually wrestle versus, you know, roided up bodybuilders that are in the gym with, just because they're in the gym with Triple H, is a step forward. And as far as in-ring work, you can't deny that. You got, you know, if you want to go get somebody that's just powerful, you get a guy like Mark Henry, and who gives a shit about Mark Henry? Just putting that one out there. What legend would you like to trade lives with for a day? That's, I think right now I would say Shawn Michaels, because he's in an interesting spot. Like, he's had one of the best careers in wrestling. He's gotten to then, after that, you know, leave on his own terms, go be with his family, whatever, do the branch off and experiment with different TV stuff, and now he's involved, I don't know to what extent, but he's involved in the training in NXT, you know, passing on all that knowledge, passing on all the experience, and helping the next generation go. And I think that's, honestly, I think that's the ultimate happy story, the ultimate happy ending for any wrestler, is to have enough of an experience that at the end of the day, when the curtain's about to drop on you, you're able to pass on all that experience. So I'd say Shawn Michaels, also because I'm a huge fan of Shawn Michaels. Thank you for that question, and my friggin' thing isn't working. Nothing's working today. I'm not working because I feel like shit. The computer's not working because it won't scroll. Yeah. Sinuses are as they are, as always. But thank you for those questions. Dreamy Nachos says, what's a finisher that you see a lot of people praising today that you don't like? And yes, this is biased, I don't understand how anybody finds Naomi's rear view even remotely anything good. I've said it before, in an age where, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's just women's wrestling, it's just a piss break and all that, but WWE's trying to change around that, trying to change the mentality around women's wrestling, so that they're not just a piss break, they're not just, you know, tits and ass, they're not just something to stare at, and they should be, you know, respected as athletes and all that sort of thing. Here, I'm gonna friggin' hit you in the face with my fucking cooch. I don't get it at all. What wrestler do you think deserves better finishers? Not particularly a fan of Nia Jax, as you guys know, but they need to decide what her finisher is. She was doing a snap Samoan drop, she was doing a leg drop, she was doing some sort of weird twisty side slam thing. So that, again, another one that I don't really give a crap about is Braun Strowman, and he's had a bunch of various finishers. I mean, the face first choke slam. The face first choke slam is a great idea in theory, because it's got that curb stomp, that, you know, face in the ground thing, but picking up somebody by the back of the neck is always going to look awkward, and if the match looks awkward, it loses its intensity. I hope that makes sense. What do you think would be better for them? Oh, Seth Rollins needs to start being able to use the curb stomp again and stop using the pedigree. That's a thing. What's your opinion of the clothesline from hell? The clothesline from hell, and this is where I'll give JBL a lot of credit. There's a lot of guys out there in wrestling that will take a generic move like a clothesline and make it seem special. JBL, when he hit the clothesline from hell, the big lariat, I mean, ultimately it's a jacked up clothesline, which everybody uses clotheslines in every match, but they had a way of making it feel important, making it feel impactful, making it feel specifically theirs. Take something like the DDT, but then give it to somebody like Jake the Snake, or what's his name? Raven, who referred to it as the even flow, and all of a sudden it's a finishing maneuver. If you can take a generic move that we see every match and make it feel like a match ender, you've done something. Now, I'll give you an example of the opposite of that, is Shawn Michaels with the Sweet Chin Music. That was the end of a match. Or it was at least the setup to the end of a match. You can do the elbow drop gimmick and all that. Now, it's regressed, so that everybody from Ziggler to Kevin Owens to to whoever else is using it right now. The Young Bucks in ROH. I don't watch ROH, but I've seen enough videos where they're absolutely prostituting the move so it doesn't feel like a finisher anymore. JBL did the opposite. He took something very simple and made it into something that you were convinced could end a match. What wrestlers do you think need new themes? Really? All 3 members of the Shield. All 3 members of the Shield need new themes. Let's say you were starting your own promotion, 5 male wrestlers, 5 female wrestlers, and 3 tag teams. This includes both NXT and WWE. Rollins, Owens, Rude, Joe, AJ, Sasha, Charlotte, Becky, Alexa Bliss. Take Liv Morgan from NXT. 3 tag teams. Although I don't think they've reached their full potential yet, I take the Authors of Pain from NXT, I take Breezango, and I take American Alpha. What are some great wrestlers you think are wasted on bad gimmicks? I'm going to go back to what I was saying a second ago. New Day, great team of 3 individuals. They work well as a team. The New Day gimmick is getting stale. Breezango, I mean, Fandango was Johnny Curtis in NXT, and his, like, creepy, not quite pervy, but creepy, sinister guy was great. Fandango is a great wrestler with a shitty gimmick. The 2 of them together as a tag team are a great team with a shitty gimmick. Basically anybody that's doing anything goofy. I mean, goofy suits Enzo and Cass, because it's what they do, and it's right in their wheelhouse, so I don't have a problem with that. But anybody that's, like, genuinely... If anybody saw any of Tyler Breeze's individual matches in NXT against guys like Apollo Crews, against Jushin Thunder Liger, against... I should have more examples off the top of my head than that. But basically, Tyler Breeze got that Ziggler treatment, where he was making everybody else look good, but he was impressing me in the process, because it takes a certain something to be that guy that the company puts other people with to make them look good. But then he's got the selfie stick gimmick and the furry boots and all that sort of thing. What's your favorite foreign object in wrestling? It's got to be the steel chair. And I mean, there's greater thing, like, as far as being impactful, I mean, you get the CZW, ECW, you know, the breaking of the light tubes and shit that's on fire, and Mick Foley had thumbtacks. The Hardys had ladders, the Dudleys had tables. But I think if you look at, you know, it's kind of an odd thing to say, but if you look at weapons in wrestling, the steel chair is kind of the symbol of it. So you got to go with it, if for nothing more than a nostalgia factor. If you have listened to it, what do you think of Skillet's new album, Unleashed? Have Skillet's new album, Unleashed. Right here. I got it a couple of days ago. I've only listened to it all the way through maybe 3 times. I love their sound. I think it's great. I'm not saying it's the most unique thing in the world, but I do enjoy it, and the vocals on it, from what I can see so far, are fantastic. I'll settle on a favorite one, obviously, somewhere down the line. Austin Roberts says, "Hey Spaz, new subscriber here. Love your reviews on wrestling, by the way. Thank you very much. Top 5 greatest wrestlers of all time." I'm always going to say Shawn Michaels. I'm always going to say Triple H. I will say, get me some heat here, CM Punk. I will say, what the fuck, Austin and The Rock. Just round it all out. The Wrestling Bear says, "What's the worst nightmare you've ever had?" That's interesting. The only one I'm not a person that really remembers dreams, if I'm honest. I remember when I was younger, I used to have a dream semi-regularly that was, you know, my friends were getting the shit kicked out of them, and there was a big piece of glass between me and them, and basically the whole idea of the bad dream was I wasn't able to help my friends. Which is a really, really shitty feeling if you're somebody like me who gives a shit about people. Do you think Thunder is God's farts? Sure, why not? Why are people so excited about the Cruiserweight division for the last 5 years or so? WWE has been nothing but Cruiserweights, with the exception of a few like Roman. It's presentation, and I do love the condescending idea that, oh, everybody in the WWE is a Cruiserweight now, which is... something that kind of makes me chuckle. No offense to you personally, Wrestling Bear. It's just something I hear a lot, and I personally don't agree. I don't think there's anybody on the roster of the people that you're probably talking about that meets the under 205 bracket. If I'm wrong, please point it down in the comment section below. It's got to do with presentation. It's got to do with the fact that, you know, Finn Balor isn't, you know, 7 foot tall, 300 pounds, and jacked up on roids, but he's not presented like a cruiserweight. He's not presented like a mid-carder. The cruiserweight division, while I think it's great, it is a mid-card gimmick, and it serves its purpose as a mid-card gimmick. The other thing is the presentation of the CWC, the way it was different, the way they've brought that over to Raw, the way they focus more on the, like, as I say, you know, all the branding, all the cruiserweight logos, you know, making the ring purple and giving the arena a different look. While that is effective, what's more effective is stuff like, you know, the referee giving the final instructions before the match, the handshake before the match. I know, or at least I've heard that Ring of Honor does that a lot, the handshake gimmick and all that sort of thing. Just the way, simple things like when the match is over, both guys get brought back to the center of the ring, referee holds both of their hands and raises the winner. It's a little more ceremonial. It's a little bit of a different feel. And the thing that the Cruiserweight Championship did, whereas Cruiserweight divisions, both in WWF and WCW back in the day, you thought of a Cruiserweight match and you thought of basically spot monkeys, which is a really, really shitty term, because if you got two high flyers in there that, you know, are spot monkeys, but they're good at it, it's, you're gonna have a good time with that, and I don't get why that's a negative. But one thing that the CWC did, look at guys like Jack Gallagher, for example, look at guys like Zack Sabre Jr., you know, not all of them are high flyers. You know, you do get some technical. You do get some technical that's better than the big boys. You do get some brawling that's better than the big boys, and it's the whole. It's kind of like the women's division in a sense, where you look at a smaller guy wrestler and you don't think I can do this. You don't think I can do this. Well, we can do it too. And where they went so far down in the cruiserweight division before, and we all know how that cruiserweight title ended. I think it's more the idea of WWE has a cruiserweight division and they're doing it right this time. You know, the Divas division was presented as filler. The cruiserweight division was kind of presented as a joke. Now we've got the women's division that's being presented in a more proper way. I have my qualms about the booking, but that's another story. Now you've got the cruiserweights that are being presented as they should be, as a unique spectacle. I think while Triple H and Vince McMahon will never admit this, they did take a couple of hints from how TNA used to present their X division, made it its own thing, gave it its own importance, and gave it its own feel, which is a good thing. What's something I would like to do before I die? I'd love to go to another WrestleMania. I went to WrestleMania 18, as most of you guys know, saw Rock Hogan live, which was one of the, in terms of being a wrestling fan, was one of the coolest nights of my life. Would you eat 20 hot dogs in under 15 minutes if it meant Naomi would get fired? Well, let's be real. You guys have seen me, especially you guys that have seen me on Facebook, etc. I'm not a small guy. I don't have the greatest eating habits in the world. I would probably eat 20 hot dogs in under 15 minutes if somebody dared me to. Now, if you go on top of that and tell me that we're going to remove one of the cancers of the WWE Women's Division, goddamn right I would. Have you ever thought about selling t-shirts? People have said that to me a few times over the course of the time that I've been on YouTube. I've always made the joke, you know, when I stumble over my words, you know, I can speak, I swear. Somebody told me I should put that on a t-shirt, you know, or a generic Spaz Phoenix logo of some sort. You guys know. I love and appreciate all of you guys. I've got 620 something subscribers right now. While that is amazing, while that is something I never thought I would achieve, just hand on heart, talking to you guys honestly as I do, I don't know whether that is a large enough audience to sustain going into something like selling the t-shirts, and I don't know in the long term how many people would actually be interested in that. If I'm wrong, if there's a bunch of you out there that would love Spaz Phoenix t-shirts, let me know, and I will look into getting with somebody, maybe Barbershop Window or pro wrestling tees or something like that. And I will throw something together if a lot of people are interested in it, but I'm sorry to say this, and I'm sorry if this sounds disrespectful. If it's a matter of only two or three people are interested, I don't know whether I can justify throwing that together. That's just me being honest. That's not me being disrespectful to those one or two people that might be interested. Honestly, somebody asking me if I'm gonna sell a Spaz Phoenix t-shirt puts the biggest, dorkiest smile on my face ever. But at the same time, there are logistic realities to putting something like that together. What annoys you more than anything else in the world? Oh dear. Again, people that follow me on Facebook probably know this, but what bothers me most in the world these days in 2016 is Vic titlement. Yes, Vic titlement. If you come from a demographic that is stereotypically mistreated and you use it to get ahead in life, if you purposely have been mistreated and you're going for your recompense for that, no problem at all. But if you're going around saying, and I don't care whether this is based on gender, race, ability, gender identity, whatever. If your way of getting through life and getting shit handed to you is, hey, somebody else like me was mistreated, so I deserve the world handed to me, I call that Vic titlement. And it is the biggest chunk of bullshit that exists in 2016 right now. That's it. Do you believe in God? Why or why not? I won't judge, just curious. I don't. Because, and this is... Wrestling Bear is giving me a personal interview as opposed to a wrestling interview, which is kind of cool. I appreciate that. It's great. Not personally, because I've never had a moment in my life that has made me believe a certain thing. I have always been open to the idea of show me something that will make me believe in God, show me something that will make me believe in a higher power, etc. No judgment. But what I will say is, while I don't subscribe to a particular religion, I have gone to United Church of Canada for my entire young life. I have seen people that, you know, have shitty things going on, who have, you know, life's just not going their way. I have seen the good that going to church does to some people. I have seen, like, the physical change of people going in, you know, absolutely worn down by life, absolutely, you know, somebody's just passed away, or they just lost their job, or somebody just moved away, or they, you know, they lost a parent, or they lost a kid or a friend or whatever, walking into a building completely drained and coming out better on the other side. And I am more than happy for those people that are able to get that out of an experience like that. So it has its place. Religion does, and church does, and all that sort of thing. I haven't had that moment, I guess, where it spoke to me personally. So it's one of those, it's not for me, but I'm happy for the next guy, and I hope that makes sense as an answer. Sorry, thank you, Wrestling Bear, for those very, very interesting set of questions. Brandon Cooper says, who will make a better champion long-term, AJ or Kevin Owens? Right now, I'm going to say AJ, because while AJ does cheat because he's a heel, he has had zero help. Where Kevin Owens had the title handed to him by Triple H, and now has Chris Jericho in his back pocket. You've got AJ Styles, on the other hand, taking on arguably two of the biggest names in the company in John Cena and Dean Ambrose by himself. The only people that might be his backup are on a completely different show. Now, will those cross over when we get to a dual-branded pay-per-view like Survivor Series in Toronto, which I'm going to be at? Maybe. But right now, as a heel, AJ Styles is going it on his own, which makes his run more legitimate. Yeah, is he kicking people in the nuts? Sure he is. Is he hanging people up on the ropes by their fucking balls? Sure he is, but so is Dean Ambrose, who's not quite a heel yet. So he's, by virtue of the fact that he's standing on his own alone, right now, as a starting point, he's a more legitimate champion. Now, take nothing away from Kevin Owens. I love Kevin Owens and what he brings to the table. His sarcasm is great. The commentary that he does on his own matches while he's fighting, and the way he talks down, he's got that Bully Ray mentality, and it follows that old cliche. You know, it's one thing to beat somebody up; it's another thing to talk to somebody while they're doing it. And Kevin Owens does that very well. If they backed off of the help, if they pulled him away from the Jericho shit, if he distanced himself from the Authority and kept going, they'd be neck and neck. But right now, because of the extra, if that makes sense, AJ Styles is title reign is a lot more legit. Mizark 10 is Naomi's unbelievably ineffective series of kicks, no idea what they're called and nor do I care to find out, sillier than the Daniel Bryan silly kicks? Yes. And I will tell you why, and I will tell you why using logic. You guys know my problem with the Daniel Bryan silly kicks, and let's be real, it became a running joke on this channel. But I would not want to sit in front of Daniel Bryan and take those repetitive kicks to the chest. I wouldn't. Now, what I found funny about them and why I called them the Daniel Bryan silly kicks is they defied logic. If you got kicked that many times in the chest, you would fall over or you would run away. The idea that somebody would sit there with their chest puffed out to take those kicks is ridiculous, and that's why they are the Daniel Bryan silly kicks. But in comparison to Naomi's kicks, at least they were making contact. Naomi is high kicking to either side, which, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the person, the legs make a V outwards. There's no way that those kicks making a V outwards are making any contact with her opponent at all. I'm not saying this because I hate Naomi, which I do. I'm just saying follow logic. She's kicking straight up in a V, straight up in a V, and the person is in the middle. There is no way you can suspend your disbelief enough to believe that those kicks are making contact when she's ultimately kicking away from her opponent. So yes, while the Daniel Bryan silly kicks are the Daniel Bryan silly kicks, at least they actually make believable and impactful contact. So yeah, the answer is yes. Naomi's unbelievably ineffective series of kicks are sillier than the Daniel Bryan silly kicks. Zohan, buddy. With the recent success of famous independent talents like AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, etc., do you believe Vince McMahon ever had at any point in time held resentment towards the independent talents? If so, do you believe it still exists? I think Vince McMahon is so up his own company's ass, in a good way. I think he thinks so much of his own company that he can't believe that anybody was watching anything else. And that's not exactly a bad attitude to have. If Vince McMahon... And yes, we can talk about the ratings and the way WWE is going and whatever. But if Vince McMahon has such a pride in his own company that he can't believe anybody would watch anything else, if you're an employee of that company, you want the owner of your company to believe that they are the only company out there. Because if they're the only company out there, your job is more secure. Do I think he had a hard time letting other people in that already had fan bases from those other companies? And yeah, and it branches from the same mentality. Well, we didn't create you. Why the hell should these people know who you are? Again, as fans, we can look at that and know that that's ridiculous. But from his perspective, no. If you're not a WWE product, you're not a big name yet. And partially that is true, because you can play college football and you can have the best scores in the country, but you're not in the NFL. You haven't done anything in the NFL yet. And that is true. Does he hold resentment? I don't know. Because even if he doesn't want to admit that those fan bases exist, they are bringing those fan bases to the WWE. So the fan base of a CM Punk, the fan base of an AJ Styles or a Kevin Steen / Owens or a Finn Balor / Fergal Devitt will be watching the product that weren't watching it before. And that you can't really be mad at. That you can't really turn away. Thoughts on The Rock being named Hollywood's highest paid actor, $64.5 million per year by Forbes magazine? I don't really have a thought on it, because it's an answer to a trivia question. Who made the most money in 2016? The Rock. He's out there, he's doing it. People have agreed to pay him that much. I don't really have an opinion on it. I will give it the, sort of the Brock Lesnar CM Punk angle, where it's like somebody from our world went off into another world and succeeded, which does make our world look good, whether we like them or not. So good for him. I really don't think it's something to have an opinion of. Thoughts on the possible Vin Diesel versus The Rock match at WrestleMania 33? It will drag Hollywood eyes to WrestleMania. It will drive wrestling fans' eyes to the Fast and the Furious movies. It'll be a great spectacle. I don't know how Vin Diesel will be on the mic, but As a wrestling fan, do I care about the match itself? No. Could it be interesting? Yeah. I would much rather see, after what we saw at last year's WrestleMania, I would much rather see The Rock versus Bray Wyatt. Are you interested in seeing Finn Balor winning the 2017 Royal Rumble? Sure. If he wins the 2017 Royal Rumble, I hope Seth Rollins is the champion, so that they can have the rematch from SummerSlam. After the drug violation notice was issued to Brock Lesnar by the Nevada State Athletic Commission after his win at UFC 200, WWE were pressured to give a statement on the issue. They stated, in paraphrase, that Brock Lesnar is a part-time superstar and is not subjected to the WWE wellness policy. Keeping that information in mind, do you think any of the following part-time superstars were on PEDs? Triple H, The Rock, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar in his WWE time? I don't know. The whole steroid performance-enhancing drug issue it's kind of sticky. It really is. I don't want to be that guy that assumes that every guy that's big and jacked up and you know, works hard to get super ripped or whatever must be on drugs. At the same time, are Triple H, The Rock, Undertaker, and Brock Lesnar above suspicions from people that are suspicious? No, they're human beings like anybody else. If you want to have a suspicion of somebody, be suspicious of them, but I don't want to sit here and speculate who could or could not be on drugs. That's just me. Who will be the next person on the WWE roster to capture a world title that has not held one before, either WWE World Heavyweight title or Universal title? Oh, I really don't know. I would have said Cesaro, but we see where that went. Really don't know. I mean, if Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe come up to the main roster before we expect them to, that's always something that could happen. Bobby Roode will be a WWE champion one day. That is a fact. I will put money on that. Before his time is done, before he retires, Bobby Roode will hold a WWE World. I don't mean the NXT title. I mean either the World or Universal or whatever that title is called by the time he gets up there. Do you think it's more detrimental for a wrestler to tap out rather than get pinned? I do. Because if you are pinned, there are certain situations where you cannot get out of a pin. In a submission, it's all on you. In a submission, you have decided, you are admitting by your actions that the other guy is better than you. If I'm in a match, and let's think about the halftime heat match that Rock and Mick Foley had back in the day, where The Rock was pinned by a forklift, which is funny for me now because I drive a forklift and thinking about how easy that actually would have been. But if somebody comes with a forklift and drops a pallet on you, you're not getting up. Your shoulders are staying to the mat. You have no choice in the matter. You have a choice when you submit. And I know that sounds terrible because you're choosing whether you suffer or not, but you decide at the end of the day to admit that the other person is better. So yeah, submission is far more detrimental. What's the best Dean Ambrose pay-per-view match? Versus AJ Styles at Backlash, versus Triple H at Roadblock, versus Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at Fastlane, versus Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, versus Rollins at Money in the Bank, versus Rollins at the Elimination Chamber, versus Rollins and Roman Reigns and Randy Orton at Payback, versus Bray Wyatt at TLC, versus Seth Rollins at Hell in the Cell, versus Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista as part of the Shield in Payback. I'm going to say Roadblock, and it's very selfish. Roadblock was in Toronto. I was there. The one near fall that Dean Ambrose got on Triple H in that title match was the one moment of that entire night that stuck out. And while you can have all these other great matches and they might be great, nothing. And I can say, and it's biased for me to say because I was there, but when that near fall went down, everybody in the Ricoh Coliseum stood up, myself included. So there's an indicator of how much they had us. You know what I mean? It's a very, very biased answer, but Roadblock, I was there, I saw it. Thoughts on the crossface biopic on the Chris Benoit murders in 2007? Will the movie be unbiased? Who should play Chris Benoit? And will you see the movie? The movie will be biased, and everything has a bias, even if your bias is right. any movie like this that's made is written from the perspective of the people that are writing it. So you can't help but have a bias. Your bias may also reflect fact, but it's a very strange thing, bias, because I can tell a story and you could tell the story almost the same way I do, but every single person will tell the story slightly differently, even if the facts are all the same. So will it be unbiased? It might demonize the wrestling business. It might demonize Chris Benoit. I want to say no. I want to hope no. Who should play Chris Benoit? I really don't know who would want the role. I really don't. Some people a while ago said Joaquin Phoenix, and yes, I know Phoenix, rah rah rah, but I guess Joaquin Phoenix is as good a choice as anybody. Will you see the movie? I will probably end up seeing it eventually. I'm not going to run out to the theaters to see it. I'm not going to run out to buy a brand new copy on Blu-ray. But when it hits Netflix, when it hits the streaming services or whatever, will curiosity get the better of me and get me to eventually watch it? I'm pretty much guaranteed I will end up seeing it at one point. Because as much as I may agree or disagree with the movie being made, it's being made. So curiosity will get the better of me at some point. Whose wrestling career ended the worst? Goldberg, Edge, CM Punk, Lita, Muhammad Hassan, Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan had no choice. Muhammad Hassan was just bad, and everything around that went bad, and they just had to get rid of the character. I'd say CM Punk, because CM Punk, everything else, Goldberg was just done. Edge didn't really have a choice. He was injured. Lita didn't really have a choice. She was injured. Muhammad Hassan was kind of forced out because of the shittiness of his character and everybody being offended and the TV companies losing their fucking shit. Daniel Bryan had an injury. He didn't really have a choice. CM Punk, the tail end of his career was so shitty that he went to the boss of a multi-million-dollar company and said, "Fuck it, I don't need your money," and walked out. So maybe not necessarily was it a bad retirement, but it was just it's just gone, it's just done, it makes you think that the past couple of months of his career were absolute shit. So I gotta go with CM Punk on that one. Not to say that the other ones weren't sad. I mean, Muhammad Hassan, WWE dug themselves a hole and kind of fucked him over. Goldberg was only signed for a year, so that is what it is. Anyways, Cheney. My original idea was to have something SmackDown versus Raw related, but I'm suffering from a bit of a creativity block, so at the moment, as it's been for the past few Septembers, I'm going to ask title-themed questions. I love how Cheney always writes an introduction to his questions. It's like the opening match before the rest of the card. It's kind of nice. Cheney, good job, buddy. Job Team Barry, Current Champs Edition. Mr. TNA, AJ Styles, Mr. Ring of Honor, Kevin Owens, or Mr. New Japan, Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, alright, I will bury Shinsuke Nakamura, which will make me very unpopular, but I have the least connection to him as a fan. I will team with Kevin Owens, because Kevin Owens and I have very similar attitudes, and I will job to AJ Styles, because admittedly, AJ Styles is probably the best thing in the company right now. Seriously, what are your thoughts on the fact that WWE's top champions are some of the biggest names from their respective prior promotions? I don't know about you, but I need a towel. That's fucking great and kind of gross. Goes back to the question I was asking earlier about, does Vince hate other companies? Obviously, he doesn't hate other companies if all of their respective hood ornaments are now holding major titles in his company. But it also shows that you were in a smaller company, you were an indie guy, you were this, you were that. You got guys breaking down the whole, if you're an indie guy, you're not going to make it in WWE. Now, yes, fans will say, that's all because of Daniel Bryan, but it's not all because of Daniel Bryan. It's because these are great fucking wrestlers, and they deserve it, and WWE woke up. And all their other roided freaks are getting booed out of the building. Oh, yes. Who do you think should break the record for most Intercontinental title reigns? It's currently held by Jericho with 9. Miz currently has 5. Kofi and Ziggler each have 4. Kofi, as an individual superstar, will not break any records. I'm sorry, but it's true. Ziggler and Miz are tied right now because WWE is giving both of them kind of an equal push. Miz already has one up on Ziggler. I'm going to say Miz. And yes, partially, there is a bias there. Miz is my boy. Miz is probably the most underrated talent in the WWE right now. And I'm going to wait for the hate in the comment section. Especially since Kevin Nash was a booker in WCW, do you think he should have given Scott Hall at least one run with their world title? Absolutely. Like, is there a question there? Assuming that you keep tabs on TNA, what are your thoughts on the Impact Grand Championship? I know that it looks like it came right out of the Octagon, and I know that they're trying to apply UFC-like rules to a WWE style of performance. To, you know, you're trying to apply MMA to pro wrestling, and we all see how well the Brawl for All went, and that's all I have to say about that. I haven't watched... the only thing I've watched of TNA this year is the Final Deletion and Delete or Decay, and that's not got anything to do with my fandom for TNA. It's got to do with my fandom for the Hardy Boys. What they're doing with the Hardy Boys is probably the best / worst thing they possibly could do with the Hardy Boys. Comparing now to the last decade, do you think WWE should have stuck with their original 8 or 9 championships rather than retiring the original Cruiserweight, World Tag Team, Divas, and World Heavyweight Championships? They had to when they got rid of the brand extension the first time, they had to unify the titles, because it was just, you had 2 of everything. So if you're going to have 2 brands and treat them like 2 separate companies, you have to have titles for those respective companies. Whether I believe in it or not, it kind of has to happen. Whether I should have kept the original 8 or 9 titles really depends on whether they still would have brought the brands back together. It's an odd question, but they do kind of go hand in hand. In contrast to what we have now, what are your thoughts on the following title placements? World Champion defends on both shows, United States Tag Team and Cruiserweight on Raw, Intercontinental Women's title and Cruiserweight Tag Team titles on SmackDown. I don't think so, only because one of their main pushes is revamping how we view women's wrestling, so to relegate them to one show. I get right now that both of the women's rosters on both shows are a little bit slim because they did them in half, but I think with them pushing so hard for the you know, the equality, you know, the girls can do it as good as the boys can, revamping how we see women's wrestling to then relegate them to one show would have been very, very counterproductive. And I don't think, with the fact that they've just introduced the Cruiserweight division, I don't think coming right on the heels of that and immediately introducing a Cruiserweight Tag Team division would have done them any favors. Down the line, definitely a possibility. It's the same thing as I say as... with the idea of a women's tag team division. You can do it, but you need the talent base to do it. And you need to have proper tag teams, much like the women's scenario. I wouldn't want to have it where you get a women's tag team division and it's like, oh, let's pair up Becky Lynch and Billie Kay. Here, there's a team. If you're going to have a women's tag team division, you need to go out and book and hire and recruit women's tag teams. If you're going to have a Cruiserweight tag team division, you need to go out there and book and grab up some Cruiserweight tag teams, like the Ciampa Gargano that are in NXT right now, like the Bollywood Boys that you had in the Cruiserweight Classic that got eliminated very quickly. So I will respectfully disagree with the way you place those, Cheney. Sorry, bud. Bold prediction incoming. Do you think John Cena will defeat The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship at Survivor Series? It couldn't hurt to have them because they have because Miz and Cena have a previous history. You can always rekindle that. John Cena fighting for any title puts more spotlight on that title. We see what he did for the U.S. title with the U.S. Open Challenge. I think it would be a far greater thing to have The Miz go on with his Intercontinental Championship run by defeating John Cena at Survivor Series. But I mean, John Cena's chasing the world title and his, you know, tying Ric Flair's record and all that sort of thing. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it would be great. Maybe maybe it's just me, but does it bug you that they're calling the Raw Tag Team Championships when they're actually the original SmackDown titles? Go and look it up. I'm not lying. It's a technicality, really. I hate to say it, but it is. Because those titles were unified and split so many times, you do sort of fudge the lineage of the titles a little bit. Why is it that the U.S. title has retained its past lineage all the way to the NWA days, but the Cruiserweight, Women's, and World Heavyweight titles have lost their lineages without any precursors? In the Cruiserweight's case, it also gets on my nerves. There's nothing that they want to forget about the U.S. title, which is why it gets to keep its history. The whole reason they brought in the women's title was the Divas title was horrible. The Divas title was very the belt itself was disrespectful. The name of the championship was disrespectful. It represents a time where, you know, the Barbie doll aspect was quite high. Not only that, but they had a women's title and the Divas title. That when they unified them, they kept the Divas title, which is probably one of the stupidest decisions in recent memory. So it's a very, very bad, very, very looked down upon period in women's wrestling. So you want to do as much as you can to distance yourself from that. As far as the Cruiserweights go, the Cruiserweight title ended with Hornswoggle. It ended with Hornswoggle beating Chavo Guerrero for the Cruiserweight title and then just dying. So again, it's a case of, I'm pretty sure that's not something they want anybody to remember, because it will, much like the Divas period of time, I think it will, if you link those titles, it will drag down the notoriety of the current belt. I don't think that the world title has lost its momentum. They do talk about, you know, it being unified with all the different titles, and it does have a lot of weight. They talk about the lineage of that belt when they talk about how new the Universal title is. So that one has always sort of maintained. Kevin Owens was on the Jericho podcast, and he said, when he was talking about the Universal title, which I thought was kind of funny because it is the new title, you know, I hold up this and I see the belt that Brett and Shawn Michaels fought over. I see the belt that Stone Cold and The Rock fought over. I see the title that Mankind and Undertaker fought over. Is it a different title? Does it have a different name? Etc. 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 Rah. But ultimately, it means that you are at the top. Now, I find it funny that he was making that comment about the new Universal title, but basically, I will take that idea as a fan, and I do apply it to the world title, because, yeah, they've changed it, yeah, they've combined it with a bunch of other things, basically to retire other titles and give this one more meaning, but I think it carries. I really do think it does. To me, and I'm not saying this in any sort of factual way at all, this is just my opinion, the title that was fought for in WWF to WWF to WWE to current is sitting on the shoulder of AJ Styles. Just the fan loyalty to a particular title. Yeah, the belt looks like shit. Yes, the main two titles and the main two women's titles all look the same. And the belts are crap, and we don't like them. But the idea, that title, like the title of that person, like the belt is a belt. The title of champion is on AJ Styles, and AJ Styles is a champion, like CM Punk was a champion, like Daniel Bryan was a champion, like Austin, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan were champions. That's that belt. That exists on SmackDown. The newbie belt is on Raw, and it's on the shoulder of Kevin Owens. And it's on him and whoever comes after him to make that title seem important, until they unify that with the world title 10 years down the road when they get rid of the draft again. Long-winded answer on that one. I cannot wait for the October edition. Thanks as always for answering. Thank you, Cheney. Gary Monahan says, "Hey Spaz, I'm back with some questions for you to wrap your mind around. What do you think about the Miz rant on Daniel Bryan after the SmackDown after SummerSlam? Showed us what Miz can do on the mic, showed us what he's been kept from doing for the past little while. I do think they're sowing some seeds between him and Daniel Bryan for something down the line. I don't know how that works with Daniel Bryan's current medical condition, but as much as fans are like, oh, they did this great thing and they dropped it, no. Watch the backstage segments. Watch Miz when he cuts a promo in the ring. Even if he's cutting his promo on Dolph Ziggler, because that's who he's facing right now, he always loops in Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, either by omission or by statement, is always kind of referencing The Miz. There is something there. It's subtle. It's slow build. We complain so much in wrestling about how they set a match one day and then next week the feud is over. This is burning slowly. I don't know where they're going with it, because like I say, I don't know how up for anything Daniel Bryan is, but something is going to happen here. If we get to what that something is and it's shit, I will be the first person to come up and sit in front of this camera and say, well, guys, I was wrong. That was shit. But it's very, very good. And we're getting some intensity out of The Miz, because Miz has been a goofball the past couple of years. He's been annoying. He's been like a jackass champion. Yeah, you know, come fuck with me. I'm still gonna hold my title. But he's lacked the level of seriousness that he's had with this feud with Ziggler. The feud with Miz and Ziggler is a very unique thing happening on SmackDown right now. What did you think of the Carmella and Nikki Bella heel face switch? I think they killed two birds with one stone. We saw Nikki Bella come back as very similar to Seth Rollins coming back after he rehabbed his leg. And after we saw the story of how he rehabbed his leg, and we all love the guy, and we're all happy to have him back, and we're all happy that he can wrestle again, why the hell would you make him a heel? This is a guy we want to cheer for. Same thing goes to a lesser extent with Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella came back from a fucking broken neck. Seth Rollins, in all due respect, nobody wants to fuck up their knee, whatever, but that's fine. Girl came back from something that could have paralyzed her. Who's gonna boo her? I mean, other than the people that blindly and violently hate the Bellas for no reason, like Preston and Deluxe Man, who's going to boo a comeback story like that? So they brought her in. They had to stick her on the heel team because Eva Marie was out and whatever. But they corrected themselves quite quickly. They had her immediately become a victim to Carmella. Carmella going heel, also a great move. The crowd doesn't give a shit about Carmella. Carmella, they didn't like her when she was with Enzo and Cass in NXT, and they like her even less now. So you might as well make her a heel and let her get some heat that way. And I think it was a perfect storm, so to speak. You had somebody over here who didn't make any sense being a heel. You got somebody over here that's not getting over as a face. Do the double turn. Was it hot shotted? Was it short triggered? Was it okay? We introduced you coming back on Sunday as a heel, but now on Tuesday you're a face again. Was it done very quickly? Was it very staggered? Absolutely. Does it make a world of sense? And did they learn from the mistake that they made with Seth Rollins? Yes, and I think it was brilliant, and I think it's going to work out better for both girls. Honestly, I really do. Do you think there's some sort of a curse involving NXT superstars moving to the main roster, as I count 14 superstars, including the women who have picked up either short or long-term injuries after making their move to the main roster? I think they're... And please don't take this the wrong way, I think they're kind of spoiled in NXT, because they get together, they tape like 4 or 5 weeks of programming, and then they go do other stuff, whereas A, on the main roster, the schedule is a lot more rigorous. B, they're traveling, which they're not doing with NXT on a regular basis. And C, they've got the adrenaline of finally being on the main roster and really wanting to be the ones that shoot out. You take a look at people that do crazy ass shit. Sasha Banks and Big E are my biggest examples, and Big E's not exactly new, but he does that spear to the outside that's going to fuck somebody up one day. He's going to fuck himself up one day. Sasha Banks should be paralyzed right now, and she's not, and I don't wish any bad on her for sure. You got Finn Balor, which was, I guess, equal fault him and Rollins. I mean, he put his arm back when he wasn't supposed to, but Rollins threw him from too far back, and all that sort of thing. It's unfortunate, it really is, but I hate to use another cliche, but that's why we say wrestling's not ballet. People are going to fuck themselves up. And I don't think because somebody comes from the yellow brand, they're getting injured is any more or any less sad than somebody who was just made on the main roster. I will say, hashtag all superstars matter. Oh yes. What do you think of a feud between Demon Kane and the Demon Finn Balor, which would lead to Kane's retirement and a passing of the torch? I said this earlier with the whole mentor thing. I don't think people give a shit about Kane. I get what you're saying with the whole old demon, new demon mentality there, and the like you say, the passing of the torch, I don't think it would be impactful. I think a lot of people that are fans of Finn Balor would be sitting there being like, fuck off, guys, can't you come up with something better to do with Finn Balor? Which is unfortunate, and I don't know what you do with Finn Balor when he comes back, to be perfectly honest with you, because the title picture, his name was going to be made by being the first Universal Champion as soon as he came up after the draft, which would have been amazing. I don't know what they do with Finn Balor now. Do they throw him in the mid-card? Are you going to see the demon Finn Balor walking around with the U.S. Championship? I don't think you will. I think he'll come back. I think he will somehow or other hook up with AJ Styles, and I think the club will be off and running. I think we'll get rockstar douchebag Finn Balor, which you guys know I'm quite a fan of. What do you think of the new 7-foot-something Chinese wrestler that they've signed? Will he be the new Great Khali? I saw this question come in when you first wrote it in about a month ago, Gary, and I still, to the moment of this recording, don't know who you're talking about. I'm sorry. I know that they've got the Dan Matha, big, huge motherfucker that's about to debut in NXT, but he does not look Chinese. Just putting that one out there. Do you think Brock injured Orton intentionally at SummerSlam because of Orton's steroid dig at him on the Chris Jericho highlight reel at Battleground? No. I think they were out there in a scenario where, look, we're not allowed to bleed that often. You know, bust me open in the forehead, it'll make our match stick out, and it'll end in a double, or in a TKO. And I think it was planned. I think it was intentional. I think both guys were cognizant of what was going on. I think it went a lot deeper than it was supposed to, and I think it freaked a lot of people out. The stories are out there about Chris Jericho confronting Brock Lesnar backstage after the match, which to picture that is just kind of funny, if I'm perfectly honest with you, but I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think Brock Lesnar got pissed off and used a fictional match to go and fuck somebody up for real. No, I don't think that's the case at all. That would be attempted murder. So let's just not do that. What are your top favorite wrestler theme tunes right now? Right now, it's basically everybody from NXT. Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura. I like Ember Moon's theme, actually. Cedric Alexander's, I like his. It's neat. I like what, and yes, a little bit nerdy, I know. I like what they did with TJ Perkins' entrance, the whole 8-bit video game type entrance. I think it's neat. And when you hear him, I think he was interviewed on WWE.com about how he was involved in every step of the creation process for his new entrance. So whenever you hear, even if I didn't like the entrance, whenever you hear about a wrestler, you know, taking the extra mile and going and making sure he was hands-on for the little things. Makes me smile, makes me believe on screen that they're more invested in themselves than maybe the next guy is, which is good, especially when the Cruiserweight division is already falling under scrutiny by wrestling fans that have hard-ons for big, jacked-up steroid heads. Moving on, why do you think Raw and SmackDown advertise each other's pay-per-views when Vince clearly stated it would be separate entities and competing for ratings and merch, etc.? It doesn't make sense to me. Yes, Vince has his children fighting each other, has their brands fighting each other, but the WWE itself is still one company. The WWE itself still needs to make money. So yes, the WWE itself is going to use every platform it has to advertise its other platforms. NXT advertised the Cruiserweight division. The Cruiserweight division advertised Raw. Raw advertises SmackDown. And around and around and around we go. No matter how much advertising you put behind something, if you're not putting together a good show, people aren't going to watch. So the element of competition is still there. While it's not a competition at all, Team Yellow and Team Blue are clearly kicking the shit out of Team Red. Yeah, it's a reality thing. As much as Raw and SmackDown are supposed to compete with each other, that is fiction, and the need for WWE to make money and find new viewers is very factual. So, yes, it does make me laugh every time I see No Mercy advertised on Raw, every time I saw The Cock advertised on SmackDown, but at the same time, you know why they're doing it, so that's a thing. Keep up the good work, oh Canadian Wise One, from your pal in Ireland. Thank you very much, Gary Monahan, and thank you to all of you guys who make this series as good as it is. if I get up to do a Q&A series and nobody's answered some questions, it's going to be, what's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and I'm tagging out. So you guys make this series happen. You guys make me, in a good way, ramble on like I have been doing for the past, I don't know, hour or so. As I said, for anybody watching for the first time, throw your questions down in the box below if you want to be included in the October Q&A. Go back a couple of videos, check out my Survivor Series fantasy booking contest. Got a couple of great submissions already. It's going to run right till the week before Survivor Series, so you guys got lots of time to put your thoughts together for that. More details on the previous video. I don't even know what's happening next. I don't think I have any other videos coming up this week, so unfortunately the next time you see my pretty sexy face will be next week when I talk again about WWE Raffle. Anyways, thank you guys. You guys really do make this awesome. I could sit here and say thank you for the next 5 minutes, and I wouldn't have thanked you guys enough for what you all do for this channel. All the usual suspects and a couple of new faces. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all of these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I'm tagging out. Bye, guys.